So it's quite easy to fall into the trap of being constantly reactive as a business owner. I know for a fact that I'm constantly surrounded by stresses, and every day there's another fire to put out, and there's always new things to add to our to-do list and to keep us busy. But if you've ever been curious about what the actual effects of that are on our brain and how you can manage the quote-unquote business brain, I think you're really going to love today's episode. I have Jay Pottenger here, who is a speaker about mental health and neuroscience and one of the owners of EQ Minds, who we have done another mini episode with, 3 mini episodes actually, a few months ago. So it's great to have their team back in the studio. And today we're going to go through 3 simple hacks to reduce the feeling of feeling busy. And I know sometimes we love to thrive on that a little bit, and we're a bit addicted to feeling busy. But I think after this episode, you're going to learn a little bit more about the science behind that, and maybe it's not so good for us, and things that we can do to help reduce that. So, Jay, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. How are you?
I am fantastic, and thank you so much for having me along. Very excited about our chat.
Yeah, me too. We before we hit record, we were actually talking about how stressed we are as business owners and the things that we're working through at the moment. So before we get into this episode, I'd love for you to give us, I guess, your elevator pitch. Tell us a little bit about you and your business and what you do.
Yeah, so I guess looking back, I was sort of very interested in the brain from a young age. I was very involved in athletics, tried to pursue an athletic career, had a decent crack, but wasn't as successful as one might have hoped. And so from that, though, I met an incredible mindset coach. And he taught me all about the incredible ways that it's not only about dealing with your body, but dealing with your mind when it comes to high pressure situations. So then, I was studying as well as playing basketball at the same time, doing university, doing some economics and some accounting, which is super exciting. And then went and worked in the business world for about 15 years. But then during that time, it was great. Had an amazing career, learned a lot, learned about, all the different things that are going on in the business world, but had a massive change. I hurt my back significantly.
Oh, wow.
My wife had been through her own challenges with mental health, and she'd started up a little company that was focused on mental health and mindfulness. Then I went back, had this bad back injury where I sort of ended up out of action for about 2 years of my life, which was very challenging.
That's really significant.
And
That's huge.
It was huge. It was a really tough time in my life. Had lots of surgeries and operations and types of procedures and all that kind of thing. But from it really helped me understand that it wasn't really about my back. It was about the impact it had on my brain. And it turned out I ended up going to Neuroscience Australia, of all places, and they put me on a program to rewire my pain pathways. And from that, I learned all about the incredible power of the brain. And thankfully, it made a full recovery, and it sent me down a completely different trajectory of my life, where I went back, studied neuroscience and mental health, and it's brought me to this place today. And it's just fantastic being sort of able to understand what's going on in the business world, but how what we do, both at work and outside of work, can really impact the performance that we have and also how we feel and, our happiness as well. So it's been a wonderful journey.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. And how do you support customers? And you mentioned that you're a speaker, so you do a lot of keynote presentations and things like that, and what do your customers look like? What's your kind of services?
Yeah, absolutely. So EQ Minds was created from my wife because she wanted no one to ever go through what she went through. So we're all about making sure that people take care of their mental health so that they can thrive. So we have my wife, myself, and also a lovely speaker down in Melbourne called Ashley, and we basically do wellbeing sessions with all different types of companies. So eBay was our first ever client. They're still a client to this day. And we've worked with just the most amazing brands across here and across the world, including Europe and America. We work with all the banks, insurance companies, pharmaceuticals, right down to small businesses as well. And we just go in and educate their staff about how they can take care of themselves so they can perform better, both at work and in life as well.
Yeah, cool. And do you find that, say, the stresses of someone working or running a company like eBay are that much different to those the local electrician down the road?
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter what you are doing, in what business if you're doing it half decently, you're probably facing some form of stress.
Yeah,
Maybe if you're in a small business, it just means you wear a lot more different hats.
for sure.
So potentially when you're in corporate, and this is, I'm generalizing here, but if you're in corporate, you probably are a little bit more specialized and the tasks pile up in that specialization, where when you're in a small business such as ours and many of the listeners today, it's all about your everything to everyone. So
Yeah.
you've got to be the salesperson, you've got to be the operations person, you've got to be the person doing the delivery, everything. If a mistake goes wrong, if something's got to be fixed, well, guess who's going to fix it? You're going to
Yeah.
fix it. So it's just a different form of stress and different forms of hat wearing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you're literally describing the day that I had today. I did like a sales call in the morning, and then I'm working on a marketing strategy, and then I'm reviewing a content calendar, and then I'm having a client meeting, and now I'm doing this. It's like the hats, I'm just like putting them on, taking them off, switching them around, turning them around backwards, just literally every single hat I could wear today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're the same. We're 10 years into our journey, and it was exactly the same today. I was popping on the hats, throwing the hats on, getting
Yeah.
forced to wear different hats I didn't want to wear, hats I do want to wear.
Yeah.
But it's a journey, and it's an exciting journey.
Yeah, amazing. So you have 3 hacks for us to reduce the feeling of being busy. What's your first one? Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, so I think in today's modern world, we are thrown so much information from so many different channels. It's like you look back 10 years, 15 years, and you thought, oh, how can we be given any more information? And yet 10 years later, here we are, and there's more information than ever before. And I think this constant stream of multitasking is having a huge impact on multiple things, including our stress levels,
Yeah.
our ability to focus on things, but it's even changing the very structures of our brain. And I wanted to share with you a really interesting study. It's a little bit of an old study that was done, but what they did is they had an fMRI. So they basically took photos of people's brains, a little bit more complicated than that, but we'll call it that. And they looked at what was happening when they were doing media multitasking throughout their days. And so media multitasking, you think about any time you jump on social media and you start flicking through it, or maybe you're sitting on the couch and you're watching TV at the same time as reading your phone. And what they did is they explored a specific part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, which is really important for focus and emotional regulation, amongst other things. And what they found was just mind-blowing. Basically, the grey matter in that part of the brain, so the physical structure, the size of it, the more during this study people media multitasked, the less dense that part of the brain got. So the very
wow.
structure of their brain was getting smaller, less dense when people were media multitasking. Now, this is not a direct causation. This is just a correlation.
Okay,
But
good. Because I was thinking all the times that I'm watching TV and scrolling, like my brain must be the size of a pea by now.
it's a problem. It's a massive problem. And you're not alone. It's, everyone's doing this. I still catch myself doing it a lot. And even worse still, you think about, we had a child and we were putting her on YouTube Kids at times. What was that doing to her poor little brain? So it's really important that we sort of limit this media multitasking, not only from the perspective that it is changing our brain, but also when we're doing that, it's been shown that the more you're doing this, the higher your stress levels are going to be. So if we can try and just focus on one task at a time, a lot easier said than done, but that's definitely going to help improve the stress levels that we face during the day. So the first one is really just trying to limit those distractions and really focusing in on one task at a time. So turning off all your notifications. I know it's simple, but people just don't do it. They're using focus mode on your phone, just simple things that everyone can do and control to help us focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better because those are things that I actually do in my day to day. I have all of my social media notifications turned off. So in order to see my DMs and messages or even who's liked my photo or whatever, I have to go into the app and actually seek that out. And even things like my emails, my inbox, I try my best, not always, but I try my best to not open an email until I'm ready to answer it or until I'm ready to take on a new task, because I got into this really bad habit of opening an email, reading it, I'll get to that later, continue back on my task. But then there goes, say, a minute or 2 minutes, and then I'm having to, drag my brain back into work mode on the task that I was originally doing. And mentally, I've started a new task in the back of my head because I've read that email, and then it just compiles, and then I feel stressed, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. So what's actually happening there, and it's a great point because we all do it, is we get distracted by these dopamine hits that we're getting.
Yeah.
So dopamine is a neurochemical in our brain. It's our pursuit chemical. So anytime you hear that notification or you see a little email banner pop up on your screen, the dopamine fires and says, hey, I want to go look at that information. Yeah. And like you said, you get distracted, you go to it. And even if you think, oh, I'll just be over there for a second, it still takes brain power. It burns up these neurochemicals in our brain to get back on task and really stay focused on what we're trying to achieve. So it's a great point.
Yeah. Are you the type of person that has like 100,000 emails, like your little notification is just set at like 1 million emails? Or because I'm the type of person that has to like clear it out. I hate having the little number there, but then that ends up making me stressed because it adds to my distractions.
Lots of people get anxiety around that little email number that pops up. So I think one of the best things you can do is making sure that you're turning off the notifications so that you're not seeing that, and that when you go in, you choose to go in at the time that's going to work for your schedule rather than just reacting to everyone else's schedule. One of the best things I ever did, and it took me a long, long time about, especially as I was preaching about this, getting on my soapbox about it, to actually turn off those email notifications on my phone and decide that I was going to be proactive and choose when I was going to respond to things rather than letting everyone else direct my attention throughout the day.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And I think it's a good segue to your next point about being reactive, because I think emails, for me, it's emails, and we use Asana for our project management, Asana notifications. It's those notifications that just, because I totally agree, it's that little dopamine of like, oh, someone wants to contact me. Or when you're a business owner, it could mean like a new sale or a new inquiry, and it's exciting and you want to answer these things. But yes, by being reactive, you end up just adding layers and layers of stress.
Yeah, and going off track throughout the day. And I think it's really hard because I think it's easier to be reactive than to be proactive. When you're reactive, you can stay really busy, right? Because you're just doing everyone else's tasks. You don't really have to think about it. You just react to this, react to that, follow that dopamine surge, and away you go. But you get to the end of the day, you've done loads and loads of tasks. You've probably done loads and loads of meetings as well. And you realize you haven't ticked anything off the to-do list. You haven't really moved the needle, the dial with what you want. So it's really important that we get out of that reactive and start being proactive and choosing what we want to work on. Now, as small business owners, it's super important that you're responding to clients, that you're on top of things. Your sales will be a lot higher if you're responding to people a lot quicker. So I'm not saying don't check your emails for 4 days. That's going to be very problematic for your business to help it thrive. But maybe it's you only check your emails once an hour or once every 2 hours or whatever your client expectations are, rather than being in it all day and sort of, constantly chasing your tail. So I really think, it is important that we start planning out our days, because most people waltz into work. First thing they do is open their emails and they start working on everybody else's priorities. Can you start working on the things that are going to be important for you? So what is your most important task, or whatever you want to call it? How can you work on that first thing? Because distractions are going to happen.
Yes.
But let's get those good things, especially in the morning when you're feeling your best. You've got the most energy. You can deal with all that reactive stuff in the afternoon.
Yeah. And I'd love some guidance on how we can maybe not determine priorities, because that is a very like a personal thing, but say like the time blocking, for example. Sometimes time blocking can feel almost like too hard, because there's going to be these distractions that pop up and fires that you have to put out and whatnot. How can we really practically stop being reactive?
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. But if you want guidance tailored to your situation, head to moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help. We'll connect you with one of our trusted professionals, financial advisors and mortgage brokers, who work with people right across Australia. No matter where you are, they can help. Now, before we get back to the show, a quick reminder to protect your financial life. That means having income protection sorted. It means having death cover if there's any debt or dependents relying on you. It means getting your personal insurance in order. Most people insure their car, they insure their house, but what about themselves? Sky Wealth, who support this podcast, are specialist financial advisors who can help you get the right cover in place. Their advice is often more comprehensive and better value than going direct through your super. Book a complimentary 15-minute chat at sky.com.au. That's skye.com.au. And they'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah. I think we need to take a step back, and when we are planning, whether that's at the start of the day, the end of the day, the start of the month, whatever it is, and get really clear on what our priorities are. And there's a million different things you can do to get to that outcome. There's lots of simple ones. You can use the Eisenhower matrix, whatever it is that you see fit.
Is that the urgent and important?
Yes, exactly.
Not urgent and yeah.
So you have the chart and you decide whether it's urgent and you have to do it now. So you're basically just plotting it. And what you do is you decide what is important. And then if you don't have the ability to do it straight away, it's having that discipline to blocking out time in the calendars and then not allowing people to take that time away by putting meetings over the top and you just auto accept. It's about saying, actually, no, this is my priority now. I'm going to work on this. And if you want to have a meeting with me, it's going to have to be outside of this meeting that I've already set with myself. I know that's easier said than done. I know people have bosses and they're going to put things over the top. But if you can just start creating those habits and processes to make sure that you are blocking out time, super important. It's gonna help with those stress levels and make sure that you're working on the right things. Also, when it comes to that, I think people should be making sure they're blocking out time for breaks as well. Because the first thing when we get really busy, which is often the worst thing for our stress levels and for our mental health, is we start dropping the breaks, we stop having lunch, we stop having a healthy lunch, all those good habits that we should be doing, they're the first to go because we just think, we just keep pushing.
I just have to get to, meet that deadline. I just have to do this. I just have to,
Yeah, absolutely. And it still happens. I know today, my wife walked up. We're both working from home today. She walked in and said, I really need to take a break. I haven't taken a break. It's been multiple hours. And we know this stuff and we still don't do it. So, you're using the Pomodoro technique, which is where you have these little short spurts of time. Are you setting an alarm so that it goes off in the morning or the afternoon so that you just need to get up and go for a 5-minute walk? But putting in these little habits, I think, can be very, very beneficial to make sure that you're getting proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, and I think it does come with a little bit of trial and error to work out what works best with your business and your personality and your customers and whatnot, because I used to do the traditional time blocking thing where I was like, I will spend 1 hour on this task and then 10 minutes on this task or whatever. And I felt that was a little bit too rigid for me.
Yep.
Whereas I love what you said about the meetings and almost like setting boundaries for meetings now is I will instead time block if I'm super busy, just not allow anyone to book in a time with me across this afternoon. So I know I have the time to complete tasks X, Y, and Z. And then I'm not almost like worried that I'm going to get a call from someone or someone's going to book in a call with me or I'm going to have a distraction pop up because I've set that boundary and I've essentially prevented people from contacting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's about. Maybe if you work in an open office environment, that gets challenging at times.
Yeah.
But there's other things you can do. You can book out a meeting room if there's something that's really important that you're going to work on. You can go and work from a cafe for half an hour or an hour. I'm not saying go and Skype off and don't do any work, but there are ways that we can get around it. It's just, we do have to have some discipline and just say, I'm actually going to do this today.
Yeah. And I think for me as well, it was a feeling of not wanting to let people down and not wanting to be uncontactable. But like for me personally, it wasn't that big of a deal. It really wasn't that deep. Like if I said to someone that I could make a meeting or we had to move it, they were completely fine with that. And I think of people who have rescheduled meetings or if I've tried to schedule a meeting with them and they're unavailable, it's really not a big deal. We just find another time. People will be flexible.
Yeah, we have a saying in our house that we say, are you a surgeon? It doesn't seem like you need to be on the operating table right now. Does it really matter if you're not going to ring them back in 15 minutes? I don't think you're a surgeon, so you should be all right. I think the client will be all right if they can wait 15 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. We're not saving lives here.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to zoom out a little bit and realize, we aren't surgeons. We're just these little people on this earth ball that's in the space.
Trying to work it out. We're all trying to work it out. But it is interesting. One of the best things I think you can do is work out what schedule fits for you. So I use me as an example. I know I'm an early person. I know in the morning, that's when I'm at my cognitive best. So I need to be doing my best work first thing in the morning and not blocking out time doing meetings when they could be in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Or doing admin when they could be done in the afternoon, because I feel a lot better in the mornings than I do in the afternoons. And at night, well, for me, that's a write-off. I'm ready to go to bed by 8:30. So it's time to just get rid of things. So for me, I wake up before everyone else does in the house. And that's when I do my best work, because that's when there is no distractions. No one's going to be emailing me at 5:30 in the morning, except for maybe two of our clients that certainly know that I'm up at that time. But otherwise, you're not getting any distractions. You can totally focus. You're not getting people walking into the office. You're not getting people ringing you. It's complete time just to be fully zoned in. And then later in the day, we can respond to all of those things that are popping up. But there is something I think at times we can miss, and it's okay to have your own schedule. That's perfectly okay. But make sure that when you're doing emails, you're timing them so that you're sending your clients emails, or your colleagues, even more importantly, emails during work hours or during the hours that they work, because there's been some French studies around the cortisol spike that people get when they receive emails, even if they're not expected to respond to it. So if someone opens up an email at 8 p.m. or sees an email at 8 p.m., they get this little cortisol spike, and you don't want to be that person that's causing your client to have the cortisol or the stress spike at night. You want to make sure that they're going to get their email during the day when they're more likely to read it, they're more likely to respond to it. So one of the features that's really important to use is that email scheduling. So that's okay if you're working at 11 p.m. at night, great, but schedule that email so it lands in their inbox at, 9 a.m. or 9:30 or whatever it is, so that they get it during their day and you're not contributing to their stress levels.
Yeah, I love that. I was actually talking to one of my clients just about email scheduling the other day, because I think, one, I completely agree with you that sending an email during your client's business hours, it's also just more professional as well. And it might make you seem like you're quite a little bit disorganized maybe or something, or working late at 11 p.m. I don't know. For me, that's not the best look to be sending emails at 11 p.m. So I love a schedule send. I unfortunately did have to work late a couple of nights ago, and I was schedule sending 8 a.m. the next day, 15 emails that went out.
Yeah,
so good.
Great.
It's the best feature.
And I guess my question to you is, when you did that late night, and I don't know how late you did work, but if it impacted your sleep, did you find the next day that you were nowhere near as productive?
It's a good question. I worked until about 9 p.m., which for me is late, because I'm similar to yourself. I don't function very well after 6 p.m. My productivity tends to dip, but I was out on a shoot all day. So I was just away from emails. It was more admin stuff that I was doing. It wasn't necessarily any deep thinking. So it was just project management, responding back to emails. So it wasn't very brain heavy work. So that's probably why I chose to do it a little bit later, because it was really easy for me to smash out and got me set up for the next day. But I wouldn't be doing any creative or deep thinking work, not any strategy work late at night, because I don't think I'd be very good at it. And that would really drain me for the next day. And then you don't feel like you were productive or efficient the next day, and it just ends up being a bit of a snowball.
Oh, I think that's right. It's the snowball effect. I was speaking to a good friend of mine. He's an accountant, incredibly busy at this time of year. And he said he had to work till 2 a.m., which completely destroyed his sleep.
Insane.
And he said, it was great, right? I got that thing I needed to get out, did the audit, fantastic. But the next 3 days were almost a complete write-off because his productivity went through the floor because he wasn't well rested. Because of that, there's all of these consequences, right? Your brain's not as sharp. Your memory retention's worse. You are making bad food choices because your hormones are all out of whack. It just throws everything out of whack for, maybe not just 24 hours, but longer periods as well. Your error rates go up. There's just this raft of consequences that occur because you think, I've got to do it tonight. And sometimes you will have to do it tonight, but make sure it is really, really important that you do need to do it. Otherwise, it can wait till the next day.
Yeah, it's like, what's the saying of every action has an inaction or a consequence reaction or whatever the saying is. And by doing those 3 or 4 hours late at night, you're taking 3 or 4 hours of really positive, efficient work the following day because you're not getting that sleep. So it's, obviously we work in small business, like there are going to be times where you just have to kind of knuckle down and get through it. But, I guess being a little bit more selective and strategic with those times, not just relying on those 11 p.m. emails every week because it's just not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable. And especially for us, we're a mental health and mindfulness company. It's not a good look if we start throwing out emails at 11 p.m. at night. So we certainly don't want that.
Yeah, 100%. So to wrap up, your hacks to reduce feeling busy are minimizing distractions, stop being reactive. You know what? I'm going to change that to try and stop being reactive and work out what's important for your business. And I think that last one in particular is probably the most important in order to stop being reactive and then in order to minimize distractions. That's probably the key piece for this episode is really work out what's important and work backwards from there. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And the great news is all of these things, right, they're within our control. So
yeah, so easy.
Yeah, they are. So they're the simple things. They're just hard to do.
Yeah.
But they're within our control, and don't try and, bite off everything and start small, do something little, just see if it works for you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, try something else a little bit small and just start building on those good habits. And I think you can really come a long way in terms of improving those stress levels you have throughout your day.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can hear those beautiful birds chirping in the background. I think that's your background, Jay. Even that is like so peaceful already. I'm already feeling relaxed and less stressed.
Birds outside the window at the moment.
It sounds lovely. All right, well, I think that's a great spot to wrap up this episode. This is the first of 3 mini eps that we're recording. We're going to try our best to keep them short and sweet. So we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the product disclosure statement, PDS, and target market determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glenn James are authorized representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds financial services license 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.